Hey everybody, we are Dawn and Carrie Massey, and today's episode we are going to be talking to you about the top 3 ways to keep the spark alive in your marriage.
Spark, let's go.
So, the top 3 ways that we have found that have kept the spark alive in our almost 20 years of marriage are dating on a regular basis, doing intentional love notes, and having fun together. So, let's talk about dating.
Absolutely. I think dating is something that it depends on the stage of life that you're in, will determine what that looks like for you. I mean, if you're early on in your marriage, it'll look different. If you're early on in just in a relationship of, girlfriend and boyfriend and you're chasing each other, the dating scene will look different. And then as you go along and you have children and they're older, that whole scenario is going to change. And what that looks like for you is going to be different. But we're going to share a little bit about what has worked for us, the different seasons we've encountered, and how we kind of, worked to incorporate that in our family and into our life. So we're going to share that with you today. But before I do that, I'd like to share some really cool facts with you that I found really interesting. And I'm gonna read these off just because I think they're really, really profound and to kind of hopefully give you some substance of why dating is so important. So there are obviously a bunch of studies about dating, why it's important. You all know that. But did you know that couples that date are 3.5 times more likely to say that they have a successful or happy relationship? 3.5 times, that's massive. Did you know that when you spend quality time with your significant other, you're going to have 14% reduction in the chance of a divorce? And we've talked about that D word in our relationship. We've shared this with you on our podcast, is that is not a part of our vocabulary, but it reduces the chance of that by 14%. I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing I think was really neat is couples who engage in new and exciting activities, try something new together, are reporting to have a better satisfaction with their relationship. That's pretty cool, right? So dating. So I'll talk a little bit about what that looked like for us, and Carrie will jump in here with me. And, I really think, early on, it was so important that we would schedule it, right? It wouldn't be very spontaneous, but it would be very scheduled. That way we made sure we made each other a priority. Now, early on, we weren't great at it, though. I'll tell you. I mean, that is not something we weren't wonderful at it early on, right? You had a little baby, and then you had another baby, then you have another baby, and it's always something going on. But probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe is when we really got really serious about dating each other. Every week, like clockwork. Now, it does not the same day of the week, and it is spontaneous. She'll call me up and say, "Hey, honey, you want to date tonight?" And it's always yes, right? It's never a no. And then there's times when we know it's going to happen before church or after church, or it's Saturday night, it's a Wednesday night. That's where we're at now, but it wasn't always that way. And then, as your kids are really little, you really have to be kind of, structured in that, right? You got to get a babysitter. You got to do all these things. Thank God we don't have to worry about that anymore, right, honey?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's really, and then let me talk to you about COVID. We found that was probably our best dating season. We were in Denver during most of COVID in the Denver market, and we would make it a point to go get drive-through or go get takeout. It didn't matter where it was. And we would always eat in our car, and we'd find the coolest spot we can find and look out over the great mountains of the Denver area. And I still believe that was probably our best dating season. Even with little ones at the house, we had an old enough one to watch the little one, so it was kind of beneficial for us. But anyway, that's the one I remember the season. What about you, honey?
Well, you stole mine. I don't know if it was our best, but it certainly was interesting. I mean, dates can take a lot of different shapes and forms. As John mentioned, when you have little ones, it's challenging. I mean, for us, when our kids were little, we didn't actually have family around. We lived out of state, and we didn't really have those built-in babysitters yet. So for us, when our kids were really little, it looked like quality time together. And I think that's what, when we say dating, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about intentional quality time where we are trying to shut the world out, try to reconnect with each other on a personal level, as friends, as lovers, and just talk and spend time together one on one. And so when they were little, we would put them to bed and we would have a dessert or a snack, and maybe we would watch a movie, or maybe we would just talk, or we would play cards, we would play board games, we would do something interactive with each other. And we have a couple of rules, and so we'll go into those rules. But as they grow, right, we're able to get babysitters and spend a little bit more time out, and dates can be dinner and a movie. They can be going to a park. You don't have to spend money to date your spouse. We've packed picnics and gone to parks and sat by the lake and had our picnic lunch. I mean, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to date your spouse. It just takes intentionality and it takes planning. And so as they grow, we've been able to do more, and different seasons, our dates look different. But the key is making it consistent, making it a priority. One thing that we found is that if you don't schedule it, if you don't plan it, it's not going to happen, because life is way too busy. We've got way too much going on. And what we're saying to our spouse is, you matter to me. You're important to me.
Absolutely.
I need to spend time with you. And that is a very key way to keep the spark in your marriage, is that you keep that relationship going. You connect with one another. You spend quality time together, just the two of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about keeping the spark together, I'll tell you this, keep the spark alive is, I have a saying in my work world, and both in our family as well, is that if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. It's just the way it is. If it's on my calendar, you could write it down and know that I'm going to get it taken care of, right? Well, guess what? If you're in a part of your relationship where you're like, man, I don't know how to get this done, well, put it on your calendar, and don't be afraid to put it on your calendar, the intimate times. So you know what I'm talking about, guys. Get it on your calendar. That way you both can think about it and be mentally prepared. And also there's the flirting that goes along with it. If I know that it's going to maybe happen, there's a chance, right? Because it's on the calendar. Maybe I'm a little extra sweet. Maybe you're a little extra sweet, right? So those are the things that really go into that. Don't be afraid to be a little bit regimented until you get into a rhythm, right? Until you get a great positive habit of dating your spouse. I'll tell you, it was awesome. Even early on, it was Sunday, right? Whatever it was, we made sure we made it an important part of connecting, right? In relationship, when you're trying to keep the spark alive with your marriage, you got to do you got to do these little things to make a bigger impact on the relationship.
Yeah. And so some of our rules for dating throughout the years we've grown, and we've learned what works and what doesn't work. The point of the date is to spend time together connecting. And so one thing, as busy people who work, as parents, it's very easy to get together and to start talking about work. Start talking about the challenges that you're having with your job, talking about the kids. You think, well, the kids are important, yes. But when you're on that date, the goal is to really forget about everything else, forget about everyone else, and just be together, the two of you. So, we have this rule. We don't talk about work. We don't talk about the kids and whatever problems or even exciting things that's going on. Nothing stressful. If we're going through a challenging time in our finances or with a family member or whatever it may be, this is not the time to talk about that. I know it's hard, because sometimes getting together and having those conversations is hard, but that's not what this time is for. This time is not for those stressful things. And so we developed a code word, because it's easy. You're talking and, the conversation will drift. And the next thing you know, you're talking about something, and you see your spouse, they're talking about work or, something that happened with their friend or relative. And next thing you know, you're like, oh, they're really stressed. We're going down the wrong path here. We're not supposed to be talking about this. So what's our word, babe?
Pumpernickel.
Pumpernickel. So that is just our fun way to remind the other person, hey, you know what? That this is not the time for that conversation. And so, one of us will say pumpernickel, and then we'll go, oh yeah, okay. And then we'll digress and try to get away from that subject. So that's one of our rules.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your word? I mean, think about that. You need to decide what that looks like in your marriage, in your relationship. Find something that is fun and like, man, I didn't realize I was doing that. Because when you're in the moment, of talking about whatever's going on in the work is typically work for me. And it could be whatever, right? It could be the finances. It could be your children having a tough go at school or whatever the case may be. Figure out what that word is for you. Grab a hold of it. Make sure you guys are freely using that if it gets off the rails a little bit on your date night.
Yeah. And then one last thing on dating before we move on to the next one is, occasional getaways. Those are important too. So we've got the date night pretty regularly, weekly if we can. And then, we try to plan at least quarterly, if not a few times a year, where we get away. And sometimes that has looked like a week vacation. And sometimes that has looked like 2 nights away or a staycation right in town. There's been times when we've just said, hey, we need to get away. And either our kids were old enough to be at home or we did have a trusted babysitter or friend that could keep an eye on them. And we would do a staycation. We'd go spend the night in a hotel just to get away. Life is so busy. It's so complicated. There's so many moving parts. And sometimes you just really, really need to disconnect. Turn your phone off. Everybody will live, I promise. I know it's really hard, especially for moms. You worry about your kids and, you feel like, oh, they're going to feel like we don't love them. Like, how could we take a trip without our kids? How could we, go on, this place and this adventure without our kids, But you're loving your kids when you take care of your marriage. Because if your marriage is not strong, if you and your partner are not connected, you're not having a healthy relationship, your kids are not going to benefit from that. They're going to benefit from a strong, healthy marriage, a strong, healthy relationship. And so you're doing it for them just as much as you're doing it for yourself. So it's not selfish and you deserve it. You committed your life to one another and it's okay. It is okay to leave the kids at home and say, Mom and Dad are going to go have some fun. We're going to go relax. We're going to refresh. We're going to come back super happy and get right back into being Mom and Dad again.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, we've shared this before, but she's number one, right? It's in our relationship, it's Jesus and then it's her, right? That's how it works. And I want the kids to see that. I can't stress that enough to the dads, especially, I want the kids to see how I love their mother because that is the love I hope they show their spouse. And that is a one of, constantly giving, right? And that only happens through an intimate connection and keeping the spark alive through dating and through the getaways. I'll tell you, we've had some really good ones and we've had some that are just spontaneous. And I'll tell you, the spontaneous ones are just as good. They might be situational. They can be whatever, right? But at the end of the day, they've been terrific. And I absolutely love that.
Absolutely. So the next key to keeping the spark alive in your marriage is what I'm going to call intentional love notes. So what this has looked like for us is being intentional about expressing love to one another. It's usually for us, I say notes because it's verbal, it's a text. When you were dating and, you'd wake up in the morning and you'd see that text and they'd say, good morning, how are you? Or, maybe in the afternoon, thinking about you, what are you doing? You had this like communication going back and forth. You weren't together all the time yet. And it was exciting and it was fun. And you wanted the other person to know that you were thinking about them. And so something that we want to encourage you to do is tell your spouse you love them, randomly, not, okay, yep, talking to you about everything. Okay, love you, bye. We do that. We always say I love you because you never know when it's going to be the last phone call. Nobody's promised tomorrow. I always want people to know I love them. But I'm talking about random times throughout the day. I'll get a text from Dawn. Love you. You're the best wife in the world. Just encouraging. It's not even just loving one another. It's encouraging one another. I've never gotten a text from somebody that said, hey, I'm thinking about you today. And I was like, I can't believe they text me that. How dare they interrupt my day? That is the best gift you can give to your spouse because chances are they may have a fantastic day, but they may not. But taking the time to send them a note, a text, I love you. I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. You're a great dad. Thank you for working hard for our family. Those little notes, those little things go such a long way to keep that spark alive and letting each other know you love one another. And there's other ways. It doesn't have to be text messages. We have friends do all kinds of things. You can leave sticky notes out for your spouse. I've taken lipstick and written on the mirror, on his side of the bathroom mirror. I've taken
awesome.
red lipstick. I love you, kiss marks with my lipstick. Those little things really make such a difference. And when you intentionally show your spouse that you love them, whether it's those words of affirmation, gifts, maybe they like flowers, maybe they like the text messages, but try different things, don't get stuck in a rut. But that really works for us, I think, is the texting. I would say is probably one of the most often ways that we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other day it was, it's interesting. We're talking about this today, that the other day I was praying for her. I was in my car and I was just praying for Carrie and just, asking God for wisdom and guidance for her. And as she was navigating different things that she's working through, right? And out of nowhere, at the same time I finished the prayer, she texts me, "I love you. I'm thinking about you." That's pretty cool. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's a God moment that he intertwined our minds to think at the same time about each other. And that's a selfless love. And I believe that's how Jesus loves us, is selflessly. So, I believe that's how you keep your spark alive, is, continue to tell each other how you're thinking and how you feel. Because I'll tell you, it's a tough thing. Once again, I feel like I got to just talk to the dads for a moment, if that's okay, Carrie. It's just, I know it's really hard. Guys are just not normally wired to talk about how they feel, right? But I'll tell you, guys, be vulnerable with your spouse. Let them know how much they mean to you, and not just when you want to get intimate. Okay, and I'm talking to myself here. I'm talking to myself here.
So, I didn't hear you. Can you say that again? Because I don't think they heard you. Say that again. Speaking through the microphone.
Don't be nice, or just when you want to get intimate. Be nice all the time. But what I mean by being nice, let them know how you feel, right? And this isn't just for our spouses. Think about this. This is something that I have attempted to incorporate in the way I show love to my children and my son-in-law. And I think those are things that out of nowhere, I'll just text them. If I'm thinking about them, I want them to know I'm thinking about them, because maybe they need a little lift, a little encouragement. And the same thing with our spouses, right? So anyway, I challenge the men that are listening. This is for you. Tell your spouse you love them. Send them love notes. And I'll promise you, it'll have a dramatic effect on your marriage, and it'll definitely keep the spark alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one more thing on that is just get creative. You may be so busy during the daytime, you're thinking, I don't have time to barely go to the bathroom at my job, let alone text my spouse. You might have to get creative. Maybe you're putting a little note in their briefcase or their lunchbox. Maybe you're putting a little thing on their car. I've gone by Don's work before and put things on his windshield. He's done that to me before. I go to my car and I'm like, what is this on my windshield? And I open up, it's like, hey, I think you're really cute. And it's
Can
like,
call me.
Yeah, call me. And then I see the phone number, and it's him. Those things, I'm just telling you, they're so fun.
Yes.
And they keep the spark alive. So I definitely encourage that. And then the last thing is actually really what we just talked about is have fun. Don't take yourself so seriously. Life has enough stress. Life has enough challenges. We want our relationship to be the safe space. That doesn't mean that we always get along. It doesn't mean that we always, just everything is just roses and, laughter all the time.
No, it's always rose now. She's right. I think, we have our moments, and I think that's the deal, right? Is because we're attempting to keep the spark alive, we're able to figure out how to navigate through that. And that's one of the data points, is that when you date, people who date are able to have better conflict resolution. And I'll tell you, back to like having fun here, one of the things we do a lot of, and it's not for everybody, but, the occasional slap in the hiney, right? And,
you did that.
Yeah, I did. And I tell you, it's fun. It's fun, and it goes both directions. And I'll tell you, it's a way to have a little fun, keep the spark alive, and it might not even, it's not leading to anything. It's just a little love tap, as I like to say, think about what that looks like for you. It could be anything as it relates to having fun. It could be, Just, maybe you're big, like to go roller skating. Go out and roller skate with each other. Go out fishing. That's my thing. I'm a big time fisherman. I love to fish. I love it when she goes. I love it the most when she goes because it's fun to have that with her.
I'm his best catch ever.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. 100%.
Yeah. And I think having fun is just, again, not taking yourself too seriously. When we're at home, that is, the place where we want to relax, the place where we want to be able to let our hair down, and not be so serious. So even, you know, life is stressful. You can come home from work and just had one of those days where you've just been beat down like a dog. But when you enter your home and you are with your spouse, and if you have children, you're with your children, leave all that stuff at the door. Don't take it in with you. I think that's even a deeper point than having fun is leaving the stress of your work at work, leaving the worries of life at the door when you come in your home. Don't take it out on your family. I heard once that someone said that I want my family to get the best of me, not the rest of me.
It's good. Come on.
And so it takes really a lot of work and a lot of selflessness to learn how to lay that stuff down and realize that these are the people that I do life with, and these are the people that I do life for. These are the people that I am working for. These are the people that I am here to be with. If you're a wife and you have kids, no matter what role you have, whether you work or you stay home, you are there to support your husband. You are there to be his helpmate. You are there to help nurture your kids. We want to make sure that we're taking time for ourselves, to fuel ourselves so that we can do that, so that we can be filled up and then we can pour out into our family. And same thing for guys. You want to leave that stress at the door. There's times where, I have to say, hey, whoa, like I don't know what's going on, but it feels like you're taking something out on me. This doesn't sound like this has anything to do with me. And so we just have to be mindful. And when we do that, then we can have fun. We have had Nerf wars and, scare wars where
She falls over when I scare her, so I try not to scare her.
Don't jump out and scare me. I will literally fall.
She's like a fainting goat.
I'm like a fainting goat. I can't tell you how many times I've fallen over because he's jumped out and scared me. And that may not be fun for you, but you find what works for you.
Well, one of the things that I find is probably what I enjoy the most is my kids, along with my sweetheart, they will run and try to beat each other to my car when I get home to see who gets first hug. Not only does it show me love, but it's a lot of fun because here's what's cool. We'll do it together. So sometimes it's me, sometimes it's the other way around. I'll do it with Carrie. And the goal is I will avoid the children to give her the first hug to remind them once again, she's number one. And it's a good time. But, I tell you, everything you talked about today is really important. And I really hope people grab a hold of this and it's able to make an impact on their relationship and on their marriage, or if they're about to be married, hopefully they're able to really cling to this information. Because I tell you, what we're talking about based on 20 years of marriage, it takes a lot of people a long time to get all that knowledge. And anyway, I just really, really good stuff today, like Carrie. Really good stuff.
Thank you, babe. You too. This coming weekend, if you're listening to this recently, is Valentine's Day is coming up. So we want to remind you that it's not just once a year that you date your spouse and tell them you love them and shower them with gifts. And honestly, Valentine's Day is not even a big deal to us that much. We probably usually stay away from the crowds because it's like one of the busiest nights at any restaurant you're going to go to. But it's every day of the year. It's not just a holiday that we take time to show our love, to show our affection, to care about each other, to date. That's something we do all year long. And, if we happen to do it on Valentine's Day too, then that's awesome.
Great. Absolutely. If you want to keep the spark alive, make sure you date your spouse and you let her know how much you love her.
And have fun.
And have fun.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
See ya.